You're listening to a Roddenberry podcast.
Oh, did you miss us?
I certainly missed you, and I miss your wardrobe as well.
Well, thank you. I missed you, and you were wearing an appropriate t-shirt today. Absolutely. Yeah. Because, I mean, look, Mission Log Engage, it's not necessarily about where we are specifically in the run of Mission Log Star Trek coverage, but it just so happens that our first Voyager episode has dropped. So, here we are. Been gone for a little while. We had a little bit of time off, partly to get Mission Log together, and then
Right.
I was away, and just that's how the cookie crumbles sometime. But we're not going away. We're here.
Yeah,
And
it's a
we're here to bring
short
you
little
more engaged.
hiatus.
Yes. Yeah. And we will, forewarning, we will do that from time to time because we have lives and we also have, our podcast obligations. But this is what's fun, is we get to go through the mailbag and see what you have written to us and then comment on it here in our loose, casual, hopefully fun way on Mission Log Engage.
That's right. So for anyone who hasn't listened to us before on Mission Log Engage, what John and I do here, we say at the very beginning of Mission Log that we may use your comments on the air. Now, that's either in email format, or sometimes we'll even look at Facebook or Twitter or various forms of social media, even our own webpage, missionlog.com, and then find these comments that we feel that are appropriate to talk about that engage some very interesting topic and discussion.
Yeah. So we're going to kick it off today with a message from Facebook. Norman, why don't you do us the honors, please?
So this is from our Facebook page. This is from Murray, and Murray says, and that's just Mary, the way that the Flight of the Conchords have Mary on it.
Good.
There's plenty to like in this pilot, referencing Caretaker, since we just released Caretaker.
There you go.
There is plenty to like in this pilot. It certainly establishes everything economically and has plenty of narrative momentum. It seems unfair to hold elements of the rest of the series against it, especially where the Maquis are concerned. That said, these are my biggest problems with the pilot itself. Why a banjo man? Why this country rural retro simulation? It does not feel motivated narratively, and it plays like someone hit the generic weirdness button. That might be okay if it were interesting on its own terms, and it's really not. I wish Janeway herself had a stronger character arc in the premise, since it ultimately boils down to her making a big decision, trademark, and having to face the consequences. It seems like the episode should be more focused on her. Instead, the character who has the strongest character arc here is Paris. I wonder if there was some lingering uncertainty if a female character can anchor the show, so Paris is treated as a decoy protagonist. Interestingly, in the Voyager Bible, he's the character listed second, Chakotay is third.
Oh, that is interesting.
Interesting observations, Murray. Thank you.
Yeah. Murray, first of all, I do want a generic weirdness button. I think that would be a great thing to have in life. Let me just kind of take these one by one, and I'll say that, okay, the country rural retro simulation and the Banjo Man, I honestly like it, just because I like anytime you get to create a contrast between our 24th century crew and something that they are not connected to, but for us, the audience, we know what that is, even if it's a bit removed from our own experience too. I like it here because I can imagine, think of yourself as the alien, and you show up on Earth and you're going through the library data. You've got thousands of years to pick from, and it's just, okay, what's the thing you land on? Well, you land on this one particular version of the pop culture or historical imagination. Okay, cool. That'll do. We'll throw it in there. And it might represent like a peaceful place. It might represent something familial. So, all right, we're just going to go with that. Yeah. I'm fine with that. I have less of a problem. Janeway's character arc. Now, that's interesting because I guess we'd have to figure out what the expectation is for what that arc could or should be. I was happy to get reveals about her as a character. Even that scene with Mark on the comms system, and just referencing the dog, and then her, we talked about this in the show, Norman, paralleling her concerns about her crew to Pike being concerned about his crew
Right.
in the cage, so these things really work well as captains. I was glad to get that. And I was glad to get her big decision trademark, as you put it there, Murray. But I guess if there really is, well, it's not a big arc, but you're just saying, here's a character who had to make this big decision, but then also has to double down on the idea of we're not going to compromise our values even when we're stuck out here. It's really about setting a premise than it is so much about, a big arc for the character. I think what'll be interesting to see is now that we're setting a premise for the entire series, what is the character for, or what are the arcs for all of these characters across the whole series? And as far as Tom, I don't know that I would necessarily agree with that assessment. They knew from the start that the captain is the main character. There is a lot of momentum and decision behind that, but it is interesting to hear that Paris was second and Chakotay was third.
I like that they went to kind of like the country bumpkin format, because how many times are we going to go back to the well of, and Lower Decks makes a great point of this, the medieval fair fantasy, right?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that we didn't go back to kind of like the medieval roots, a la, Cupid, where everyone gets thrown back into medieval garb.
Yeah.
So that was new. Also, let's go back to the original series, Spectre of the Gun. The Melkoshians, they scanned the Enterprise and Earth, Kirk's past, to create the facsimile of the Wild West as the barbarism that they were putting humanity on trial for.
Yeah.
So maybe that was one of the reasons why the Caretaker created that holographic simulation. So they said, well, this is the closest thing that we can come up with to try and create some type of communication with these new people.
Yeah.
It can be hit or miss with anyone. Some people will be like, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Others, like Murray, it's like, not really my interpretation. So
see, I kind of love it in science fiction, though, when the aliens get it wrong. Like that's always entertaining to me, because we would.
Of course.
Like, yeah.
Right.
So
like, if we met an alien, like, well, what would we do? This is great Far Side comic of the character named Roy, and he's shaking the head of an alien like a hand. He's like, the day that Roy doomed the planet Earth at first contact, or some effect like that. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, right?
I remember that.
Let's see, the big decision. I don't think that Janeway has an arc, really, per se. In Caretaker, she's a facilitator of what the captain does. The captain says, I'm going to get my crew back, whatever it takes, at the end, without sacrificing our own integrity and our own purpose. That is the beginning of where she's going to go. Everything is at the beginning of where people are going to go. Tom has a little bit of a mini arc, because he starts off as a prisoner, and now he's a full-fledged lieutenant again.
Right.
And why is Chakotay? I don't know. So right, because it's not like Chakotay almost sacrificed himself and his ship to save Voyager. And he didn't get his commission back, but I digress.
Ooh, so much more to come in the long stories of Chakotay. But hey, we're just getting started with Voyager. So any and all of you who would like to keep up with us, of course, go over to missionlogpodcast.com and send us your comments, missionlog@roddenberry.com. We're on Facebook and Twitter @missionlogpod, and subscribe to this very playlist, youtube.com/roddenberryprod. Look for Mission Log Engage. Yeah, hit the thing, the like, the alarm bell, all of that stuff. Remember, we may engage with your comments on the air.